Hello?
Yeah. No, it's just somebody talking online.
Hello?
The meeting will start in about a minute. We're just setting things up. Just so everyone knows, we're being live streamed on YouTube right now. So
Neil, it's Jean tuning in for the audit.
hello, Gene.
How are you?
Good. Let me, making my co-hosts here.
Michelle's
so-
saying that's not, it's just the flu.
Let me, okay, so we have, and I think the board is all here. We can, I'm going to start the recording. And I just have one more. Alex, I'll make you a co-host as well. All right, we are ready to go. So I would like to make a motion to open the public hearing on a local law to amend 140-6 zoning map of the code of the town of New Paltz. This amended local law and resolution have been posted on the town website. Resolution allows the town to amend the town map so that the entire parcel of SBL 87.9-1-12 is placed in the Gateway Business District. And
Second.
all in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
And
Aye.
are there any public comments? If someone would like to make a comment, please raise your Zoom hand. I cannot see everyone on, we have too many participants for me to see on my screen, so please raise your Zoom hand. That's, if you're new to Zoom, lucky you. That is on the bottom, and there's a little raise hand, and you just click on that. And so if you have a public comment about this local law, please raise your hand. And if not, we'll leave this open for a little bit while we open the second public hearing on a local law to amend the town code. So I'd like to make a motion to open a public hearing on a local law to amend the code of the town of New Paltz to add a new Article 3, video conference meetings to Chapter 24. Meetings
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And if anyone has any public comments on that local law, you could raise your Zoom hand. And if not, we'll leave that open for a little bit longer to see if anyone is joining the meeting a few minutes late. And I'd like to make a motion to open the New Paltz Town Board meeting of June 2nd, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty and justice
justice
for
for
all.
Like to make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, announcements. We have two announcements. The first is that the building department would like to remind everyone that no mow May has ended. Grass and weed height shall not exceed 10 inches in height pursuant to the property maintenance code of the state of New York. If there is anyone who has a neighbor that is in violation of the property maintenance code, we encourage you to speak to your neighbor and gently remind them that the no mow May has ended and give them time to take the task of mowing before calling our offices to file a complaint. And so just, you know, we don't want to go out there and harass people, people who weren't mowing, myself included. You realize it's a lot harder to mow after you haven't mowed. And the next announcement is that the rental and vacant residential properties registration is now implemented. So information regarding the registration and inspection of residential rental properties, short-term and long-term, can be found on the building department's webpage. Anyone with questions on whether or not they're required to register can review the information on the web or contact the building department. Those are the only announcements I have.
I have an announcement, Neil.
Oh, please, go ahead.
I just wanted to announce that the hanging baskets are up on Main Street. It took quite a bit of effort to get those up. And I wanted to thank the Ferrantes over at the Wallkill for so graciously planting those months ago and letting them grow for us. And for the Highway Department for hanging them. And for Louis, who will be watering them. And for the town board for being, you know, for just having my back and the CIT committee to get those up. So I just wanted to let everybody know that it's very exciting, small as it
Thank you,
may be.
Alex.
Yeah, thank you. I've missed them.
Yeah, they look beautiful.
And any other announcements? If not, we'll open the public input portion of this meeting. We ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes. And if you want to raise your hand, obviously people know that, and we'll you can unmute, and then that's it. And so Mr. Roger Spool, please.
Thank you. I'm just going to read a short statement. My name is Roger Spool. I'm speaking out of concern about the information provided about my 11 Cicero property at the May 19th, 2022 town board meeting. During the public comment period of that meeting, 3 community members expressed their concern about student housing in the Cherry Hill neighborhood of our town. Specifically, Matt Pilek exhibited before and after pictures of a house in the Cherry Hill neighborhood. This house has been allowed to deteriorate during the current owner's tenure. Matt identified and labeled his pictures as 11 Cicero Avenue. I'm not sure what Matt's intent was by doing this, but the house he showed was not 11 Cicero Avenue. It was not even on Cicero Avenue. It was at the end of Howard Street, across from the Feldman property. Matt Pilek's confusion between the two homes is also confusing, as my property, the real 11 Cicero, is directly across from where he resides on Cicero in English. So it's amazing to me that he got that address incorrect. The direct result of Matt's falsification of property identification is that Terrence Ward picked up the information and published an article about me in the local paper. Terrence failed to do due diligence prior to publishing. The house he researched is 11 Cicero, but not the house in the pictures. Terrence chose to mock me in the article as I considered myself a model, quote, model landlord. Terrence did describe accurately that I am a full-time resident of Naples, Florida. I also own and reside in a condo in the village of New Paltz 5 months of the year. Terrence was unable to locate a phone number for me as I gave up my landline years ago due to the excessive amount of spam calls I was receiving. I have full coverage for my properties 12 months of the year. I handle what I can directly. I have a local handyman who does all my repairs and handles other problems for me in a timely fashion. If Terrence wanted to locate me, all he had to do was contact the village or town building departments, assessor's office, etc. I can also be located on social media. I seriously doubt that Terrence Ward made much effort locating me, as I believed he used this article to paint me as a slum landlord. I am anything but. I called the editor of the paper 4 times. To date, I have not received a courtesy call back from her. I own 3 rental houses and 2 rental condos in New Paltz. All of my properties are well kept, upgraded, and appropriate to the family-based communities they are in. I take pride in how I keep my properties and in the way I treat my tenants. Lastly, I find the information provided about my property by Matt Pilek at the town board meeting and Terrence Ward's follow-up article of May 25th to be slanderous in that it provided the public with false information, is damaging to my reputation as a landlord, and an example of poor journalism. Just for the record, this is my house, not the terrible slumlord house that was shown at the meeting on the 19th. So that's my comments for tonight. I've got many calls from people, including from parents of students who are moving in this summer and wanting to know if this is what my properties look like. And from people in the community who know the kind of landlord I am and how I keep my properties, and were shocked to see such an article in the paper about me. I wouldn't have even known about it if I hadn't received a copy of the article from some friends of mine. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
Any other comments?
Neil, did we want to respond by chance to Roger?
I mean, usually we don't really go back and forth and respond, but I mean, if you want to say something, please.
Sorry, my dogs are barking, so I had to mute.
Okay. Maggie?
I'm gonna just lower my hand so you won't see it again. Well, I'm here because I was at that meeting, and Roger Spools, the Spools are friends of mine for years. I met them when I met them years ago, and I was shocked when I read the article in the paper that attributed this property to Roger, because when I saw that property, knowing that Roger has a home on Cicero, I said, well, that's not Roger's house, you know? And if anything, I've told Roger, you overinvest in your homes. Your houses look great. And I guess I bring this to your attention, not so much because I want to support Roger, as much as it dismays me that this particular person was allowed to show to the public information right here in the town board meeting. You know, you have your protocol, and I think that you try to be flexible, and I understand and I appreciate that there are times when you want to do that, and maybe you should and maybe you shouldn't. And I would suggest that last time it was where you shouldn't have. And even tonight, you know, you didn't want to go back and forth, so maybe you got burned from the last meeting. I don't know. But I will say that it's a good thing that the town board has developed a rental registration program, because that way, you know, all of us will know who's doing the right thing and who's doing the wrong thing here. And I really will say that I own property myself in the town and the village, and I have rented. And so I know the importance of having property that looks good. Because when you have a tenant and you show a tenant a good piece of property, you show them that you respect them and you respect your home, they in turn show respect. So I really think that it's a shame that Terrence took the prerogative he took to try to lambast landlords, because he tried to make it like somehow this particular landlord may represent other landlords and that don't do a very good job of taking care of their property. I will say that the registration part of what the responsibility now is of the town to check will hopefully bring those kinds of problems to a minimum. My immediate thought was, wait a minute, how could you have a driveway and make a parking lot in front of your front lawn? My assumption is that all properties have a plan on the town board record where, where there's a cut of where the driveway is supposed to be. And there's got to be some regulations that has to be followed. But most importantly, I think it is really, really important that the town acknowledge that they played a role in enabling this to happen, because you don't share information publicly without knowing what it's going to be like, what is there. So I'm sure you will have learned from that. I'm sure that I'll be a victim of this emphasis that will be renewed, because I tend to be at the board meetings, so my 3 minutes might be up. But I just want to say that I really think that some landlords need to be admonished, but most landlords are great, provide a great service. And I think that should be acknowledged by the town board, and it should be acknowledged by Terrence Ward. And I only want to say that please make sure that Roger Spool's name becomes a name that we respect again. Whatever your role was in enabling this to happen, take that responsibility and undo some of that. And I would ask Terrence.
Could wrap it up a little bit.
Right.
It's,
Okay, that's all.
thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Oh, Edgar.
I'll be very brief. I agree with everything that Roger and Lillian said. I'm familiar with the house. I'm familiar with his properties, and it's a shame. You try to do a good thing by allowing the speaker the last time to share the screen, which is very unusual. I hope that someday I get that opportunity to share information at a town board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I just wanted to say, sorry, the dogs were barking earlier, so I had to not talk for a little bit. I just wanted to say I appreciate the comments, and I think, we'll be talking about whether, examining whether that's the right thing to do, because obviously, it does, like you said, Maggie, it sets a precedent, and it's unusual. I think Zoom is unusual, so I think we're all sort of learning, and I really do, I want to apologize to Roger that, for what happened, and it's unfortunate, and obviously the paper should print a correction, and we'll make sure that happens. So I think that's already in the works. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we were in person in a meeting and someone wanted to show us a photo, which people do all the time, I don't see how that's different. We could close our eyes and look away, but sharing a screen is no different than them showing us a photo. So I'm sorry it was the wrong address, but I will also say we're somewhat generous in what we allow people to say. Many other town boards only allow public comment on on items that are on the agenda. I would be more than happy to do that. But we tend to let people speak freely at our public comment, as many of you know. So does anyone else have any public comments?
Before we continue, I just want to also say, I echo the sentiments of both of my colleagues, and I'm sorry, Mr. Spool, that happened to you, but I agree with the supervisor that we do allow people a lot of leeway, and the same way that you're complaining about someone showing a picture, you also showed a picture, and we wouldn't be able to know if that's your house or someone else's house either. And so, we just are doing our best in allowing people to give us information. So I'm glad that you came and let us know. And I agree that there should be a correction and a retraction, but I do think that we also have to allow people to give information, and the same way that you were allowed to also show a picture, which we cannot verify, right? You're just showing us something. So I think I just want you all to keep that in mind as well. So thank you, and I apologize, Mr. Spool, that happened.
I would like to also just support my fellow board members in their comments. I very much agree with what they said. I'd like to add that we're not a court of law. You know, this is public comment. And the beautiful thing about public comment is that the public can comment. So I think I underline what Essie said, that we, and Julie and Neil, that we can't control what people bring in. We just open ourselves up to public commentary. And we're very happy, Roger, that you came today and that you shared with us all that relevant information so that we can set the record straight. So we appreciate that very much.
I would just quickly add to that, thank you for coming. And also, I know our clerk's on the line, but let's definitely make sure that those comments, as I know we usually do anyway, are reflected in the minutes and a part of our public record as well, too.
Not to belabor, but I just also want to say, I think this is also a good reason why we should have a complaint process.
All right, well, thank you. Any other public comments? If not, we do have a guest presenter here this evening, Andrew Arias from Cooper and Arias. This is the town auditor, and I would like to hand it over to him, and I can make you a co-host if you have anything that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I was going to share my presentation, so if you...
So you are a co-host, you should be able to share your screen. Okay. And please.
Okay, so everyone can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So again, my name is Andrew Arias. I'm with the firm Cooper Arias. We're the auditors for the town. So what I'm going to show is a brief presentation of our audit of the town's finances for the year ended December 2021. The audit report is about 80 pages long. There's a lot of information in the report. So what I try to do is just sort of condense it into some of the bullet points, the important sections of the audit. Just starting out, we do a government audit. A government audit has several aspects to it. We look at your financials, which is your numbers and your note disclosures. That's the vast majority of what you see when you go through your green audit report is the fund balances, the receivables, the payables, and the note disclosures. We also have to assess your internal controls, and we do that to determine reliance. If you have very good controls, we can rely on those controls. If you have very bad controls, we have to do additional work to be able to feel that your numbers are justified. We have to do risk assessments of significant audit areas, and we have to look at your compliance with laws and regulations. So it's not just a numbers audit when you're dealing with a government audit. There's a separate federal single audit that's required if you have federal expenditures over $750,000. The town did not need a federal single audit this year. That would be a separate audit if you are needed. And basically we do is we give an opinion on the fair presentation of the financial statements to an outside user. So would someone looking at these financials who knows nothing about the town, would they be misled? A taxpayer looks at them, whether the state looks at them, a granting agency. The financial statements are yours. Gene and Arlene, they do all the numbers. They put these financial statements together. They do your annual update document that gets uploaded to the state. We then come in and just audit those numbers and give our opinion on those numbers. So when you look at these financial statements, I mentioned they're about 80 pages long. Just this page, when I talk about the most relevant statements on those pages, basically those are your statements are on the modified accrual basis. That's the basis which you do your budget on. So if you're looking at those reports, that's going to show you your general fund budget to actual, comparative to the previous year, all your fund balance, things like that. And in the other statements, the full accrual statements on 11 to 13, those will show everything the town has. That includes your fixed assets, depreciation, long-term debt. There's actuarially calculated figures that you get for the pensions and retiree health insurance. Most of that stuff you're not even budgeting for. It's not budgeted for. It's sort of just supposed to show what the town is as a whole, sort of comparing it to a for-profit entity. But in terms of like depreciation, you don't budget for. Actuarial changes in your health insurance or pensions, you don't budget for. So it's not as critical as the other modified accrual statements, which you should be looking at. And just going through quickly some of your main funds, your general A fund, your fund balance increased $1.78 million this year. You had planned to decrease fund balance by $8,000 through the budget process. So in other words, you had planned to put $2,500 into reserves and spend $10,500 out of reserves. You outperformed the budget by $1.79 million. That's about 20% of your budget. So that's a really big number to be outperforming your budget by. So I'm just going to some of the large areas that caused that. The community preservation transfer tax was actually not included in the budget. That's the money you raised for that preservation tax. That was about $307,000 this year. So that wasn't in your budget. So you would have outperformed your budget by that. That money sits as a reserve and it's set aside. Your sales tax and your mortgage tax were well over budget. Now we've seen that in a lot of municipalities in the COVID era. Sales tax was high. A lot of municipalities saw a lot of money coming in for sales tax. Same thing with mortgage tax. They see a lot of money coming in from mortgage tax. So those two areas also exceeded the budget, which would then increase your fund balance. You also had set aside some contingent expenses of $125,000, which you didn't need to use. So that again would also increase your fund balance. Some of the expense side, your medical insurance was about $250,000 under budget, and your ERS and PFRS, which is your retirement, was about $92,000 under budget. In the audit report on page 44, you'll see a breakdown of all the different functional expenses and revenues, and you can look at the different variances. When you're looking at those variances, as a board member talking about the budget, you might want to look at them and say, if something missed the budget by a lot, is that because something unusual happened this year? Or do we have to look at maybe what's in the budget? So like if you look at something, if the expense has been the same for the last 3 years and you're missing the budget by a huge number, maybe the budget needs to change. On the other hand, if something changed drastically this year, like for sales tax and mortgage tax, it may just be something that happened during the year. So those are the kind of things just looking at from year to year when you're formulating your budget, seeing what the prior year activity came in at. Your general B fund, your total fund balance increased $200,000. You had a planned decrease of $2,500 through the budget process, so you outperformed your budget there by $211,000, about 54% of your budget. A big chunk of that was building permits, came in about $91,000 over budget this year. And your expenses were spread out amongst various functions. So your expenses are about $103,000 under budget. Again, in the audit report on page 58, you can look at your general B and see which functions were under, but it was spread out amongst all of your expense codes. And your highway DB fund, which is all your road maintenance work, your fund balance increased $63,000. You had planned to actually use $102,000 through the budget process, $13,000 funding of reserves, and then $115,000 use of fund balance. So you outperformed your budget by $165,000 in the highway DB fund. $54,000 of that had to do with the sales of equipment. You got money in when you sold some equipment that was not in your budget. And your expenses were about $102,000 under budget over various functions. Again, on page 49 of the report, you can look and see which functions in the highway DB fund came in under budget. These are your four main funds, town-wide funds and town outside funds, giving a breakdown of what's in your fund balance. So you can look at the appropriated column is how much you use in next year's budget. So for instance, in your general B fund, even though your fund balance went up significantly, you actually used a lot of that towards next year's budget. So you plan on using a good chunk of that fund balance. The restricted is the money you have sitting in reserves, and the unappropriated, unassigned number, that's the money that you can use for anything in those funds. And what the state controller will say is there's no statutory limit on that, but they look for that number to be between 10 and 20%. That's what they're going to say is about a reasonable number to have in terms of fund balance. So certainly as a board, you're not held to that. But you look at sometimes you look at things like a highway fund where if fuel costs go up, you have a bad winter, that fund balance can be depleted very quickly. So you might as a board member say, well, we don't want to just have 20%, we want a little more in a highway fund. But that is strictly up to the board. You're not really held like a school district that has to stay within 4% of the next year's budget. You're not held to that standard. So it's really up to you. But just to give you an idea of what the state controller will look at when they're saying, what's in those fund balance numbers. What just happened here? Hold on. hold on, I'm sorry, something just popped up on my screen. Hold on. Hold on a second. Did I lose that? Let me see. I'm sorry. Okay. So this gives you each of those funds. And again, that's something as a board member to look at where you are as a percentage of the subsequent year's budget. You see a general B is the high one at 109, but it is down significantly from last year. So you are using some of that money towards next year's budget. And if you continue to do that, you'll bring that down to a more reasonable level in terms of fund balance. Your highway DA fund may seem low at 9%, but your highway DA fund, you don't run much activity through. You run all of your highway activity through your DB fund. Now here's your unassigned fund balance. This is just trends you see over the last couple of years. This is your general A fund. So as you see over the last 4 years, you've had a significant increase in your fund balance in your general A fund. It continues to go up. A big jump this year, certainly, that I just talked about. And this is your fund balance trends in the other 3 major funds, your general B, your highway DA, and highway DB. So as a board member, you can look at these trends and sort of see, why they're going up and why they're going down. General B, as I pointed out, again, the reason that went down is because you appropriated so much in next year's budget. Had you not appropriated $200,000 in next year's budget, the general B would still be significant up there in terms of how much you had in there. All your other funds, all the other water district, sewer district, fire protection, here's just a chart. So you can sort of look at it without going through all the pages in the financials, get an idea of what you have in terms of assigned and unassigned fund balances. All of those fund balances are pretty significant. Your water 4 was a deficit for many years. You just eliminated that deficit this year. And your water 3 has a deficit, which you're working towards through the budget process. You have been reducing that each year. But as you can see, all the other districts do have significant fund balances. I will point out, none of those districts have any reserves set up. So that might be something to take into consideration. If you have a lot of money set up in reserves, then you don't necessarily need a lot of money in your assigned fund balance. But if you have no money in your reserves, then you're going to want to have more money in your assigned fund balance. Certainly with a water or sewer district, you break a water main or something, you can go through money pretty quickly in one of those districts. So it's something that the board might want to consider, setting up some reserves, putting some money into reserves for those water and sewer funds to use some of that money for that. As I mentioned, your fund deficit in your one water district was eliminated. The other water district is being addressed. It was reduced 20% over the past 2 years. So I would anticipate at this rate, little by little, you'll eventually eliminate that deficit as well. All your other funds have healthy fund balances, as I mentioned. And in the audit report on pages 80 to 81 is your capital projects activity. So you can look through that, and we break it down by most of your major projects. So you can see each one of them, what the expenses were, how they were funded, how much money is left to be spent on the various large projects. A couple of the communication in the audit report, what we call the SAS 114 letter, is a letter that goes it's not in the report, it's in the inside cover. It's one of the letters we give you. In there, we would point out any significant issues we had related to the audit, any problems we encountered. So if somebody didn't give us what we needed or gave us a hard time, we would relay it to the board in this letter. We also point out to you any significant note disclosures. Again, it's a long audit report, so we'll say, as a board member, make sure you look at note 2, make sure you look at note 4, make sure you look at note 6. What we feel is important notes to look at, sort of direct you towards those notes. And then we also will give you any material audit adjustments. So any audit adjustments that we came across that we consider to be material, that we give to your business office and they post them into your accounting records, we let you as the board know what those adjustments were. So you could see what adjustments we had to make when we came in as auditors. But all of the adjustments are made in the financial statements. The other letter you get is your management letter. That's recommendations to improve control or compliance issues. In that letter, the management responses are included in there. So if anybody looks at your management letter, they can see what management's response is and how they are addressing the issue so that doesn't happen again. And then we'll always follow up on those to make sure what you said your response was going to be. Next year, we'll look at it to make sure that's being followed. Other minor issues throughout the course of the year, we usually discuss verbally with the town controller, town bookkeeper, other personnel during the course of the audit. So if we come across something we feel is minor in the justice court, we'll talk about it with the justice court clerks. Tax collector, we'll talk about it with the various people, and then we'll go over it also with the business office so they're aware. Verbal comments also we'll follow up from year to year as well. And then in the audit report in the back on page 82 is an internal control and compliance report. This report is required by government auditing standards. In there, we would report to the board if there were any material non-compliance issues by the town, or if there are any what we consider material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in your internal control. So we had none of those findings in 2021, but those would be significant issues that if we came across, we would put them in that report. The town does get an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, means everything is in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Everything that's required to be in the report is in the report. And just going forward to next year, one of the new standards for next year has to do with leases, GASB 87. So there's going to be a little bit different reporting next year having to do with leases. Basically, what we'll need from the business office is a schedule of all the operating leases in excess of 1 year. So they're going to change the reporting requirements of where you classify those lease payments, whether you're leasing office space or machinery, equipment. This doesn't apply to any leases for less than a year, and it doesn't apply to any leases where you're going to keep the equipment. So if you have a police car lease where you keep the police car, it doesn't apply to that. So this is only going to be for operating leases. So we'll get that schedule from Gene before next year's audit, go through it and determine what changes would have to be in the audit report because of GASB 87. If anything, so they may not, because there are materiality considerations. If you only have a couple of small leases, it may not matter. But if you have large leases, we may have to make some adjustments. But overall, the audit went smoothly. The records are in fairly good shape. We go in there, any questions we have from Gene or Arlene, they get us the answers and we're able to make adjustments, and it goes fairly smoothly. So, and like I said, overall, I think the town's in good financial condition. A couple of those, the one deficit in the water fund, which is being addressed. Otherwise, all of your operating funds seem to have good fund balances in them. So if anybody has any questions, anything specific on the audit?
I do. About the leases. So we well, we have contracts with like the Little League, and they like to use our fields.
Okay.
Like, does that count as a lease?
Yes, you also account if you're leasing to them. Now, are these year-by-year leases, or do they cover multiple years? They do it each year, you do a new lease?
Each year, it's usually, it's like a contract that lets, like, okay, they get to use the fields on like Saturday morning. And so like, that's kind of like, there are fields, but like, then like they're signing up for the time.
Right.
You know,
if the lease is for more than a year, it would fall under the lease provisions, but also we would then have to take into account materiality. Like, how much are the leases? But if you're doing, if every year they're signing a new contract, then that would not fall into it. That would not fall under the category, because you're doing a new one every year. We're looking for multi-year leases, a 5-year lease where you've signed on to a 5-year lease, or someone has signed on to you a 5-year lease.
Yeah, we have a few of those. So
right, and then we would get them. And even these, I would recommend, and I'll talk to Gene, that even ones like that, we'll see them all, and we'll make those determinations on whether they would fall under the lease standard or not.
Okay.
Andrew, I had a quick question on the reserve fund for the water and sewer.
Sure.
When that is traditionally set up, and this might be something that Neil already knows, but is the reserve fund funds traditionally come from where?
From those districts. So if you set up a capital reserve in one of your water districts, the money comes from that district. So the board can set up a capital reserve and then say, okay, we want to take 50,000 of our fund balance and put it into our reserve.
Right.
Or you can budget annually, fix in your budget that you want to put, say, 10,000 or 15,000 a year into that reserve. Just remembering that when you spend out of the capital reserve, has to be subject to permissive referendum, and you have to advertise it. So you can't just spend money without going through those steps.
Okay, so the reserve is conditional. It has conditions on it that have to be, okay.
Right. It's not bad, though. I would say, I've been doing this for 25 years, and I spoke to someone at the state controller who was doing it for over 30, said in all his years, he's never seen a resolution subject to permissive referendum, someone come forward with signatures and say, I want to take it to a full referendum. This is not like a school capital project where the voters vote on it. This is just within 10 days, you have to publish it, say, we passed this resolution subject to permissive. You can't act on it for 30 days. But then by the next meeting, someone has the option of coming forward with, I forget what the exact percentage of signatures, and then they can force a vote amongst the town. Very rarely, I've never seen it happen. So it's almost just going through the motions.
Right, because the reserves are usually being used for an emergency or for something that's necessary for that district anyway.
Exactly.
I think
If you
what's
have-
happening-
If you have money in the capital reserve and you need it for a new water main or something, like, why is someone going to say, don't use that reserve? That's what it's there for. You're right.
And so, part of this is, we got all new water meters that the DEP paid for.
Mhm.
And so, and we've also kind of changed the billing cycle. So we're billing monthly instead of quarterly. The meters are much more accurate. And so we're not getting like the minimum reads. And so I think we're doing better with billing the actual amounts on a regular basis. And so it's more of a real-time picture instead of before there were long lags, right? Sometimes it'd be a year or 2 years before you collected the money. So I think what we're seeing is this is exactly what we wanted, right? We're getting the real numbers and we're collecting the money in real time. And so I think we're seeing some of those deficits go away. And one of the things we might want to consider is, instead of saying, oh, well, now we can just cut water rates, or we can, give the money back, we put it aside basically in a savings account, reserve fund. And so when there is a water main break, because they always break, we then have the money and we don't have to then raise rates. So it's time to think about the future for some of these. That's the impression I get.
And by funding it annually, if you build it right into your budget, say you put a 10 or a 20, whatever the size of the district is, assume you put in your budget $20,000 as we call an expense, but it's not really an expense. You just do that so you can raise the 20,000 and then it goes into this reserve. What you're really doing is you're spreading that cost out over a longer period of time. So it benefits sort of like all the taxpayers. Whoever's there at the time is sort of contributing to this fund, so that it's not just if somebody moves in and a water main breaks and all of a sudden their water rates go up tremendously. It's sort of the same theory with bonds. You're spreading the cost out over a certain amount of time, and that's really a great way to plan for these kind of things. Just annually put money into reserve. Once it's in your budget, it's just like any other expense. Once it's in there, it's just always in there, and you keep building up that reserve until you need it. And it's great. It could be things. Sometimes you're buying a vehicle. I mean, you can all that kind of stuff you can use the reserve for.
It makes a lot of sense.
And money in those water and sewer accounts can only be used in those water and sewer accounts.
Yes.
Right. So we wouldn't be putting money away and then use it for something else by law, and the same. Main breaks, like the people who are benefiting from that water are the ones that have to pay for it. So it's good to have some savings.
Yeah. No, I think it would be a great idea to set that up. And I did have one more question. Sorry, I'm really into fiscal stuff. When you mentioned that the building permits were 91K over budget, is that something you're seeing traditionally because of COVID, or is that something our town specific? What creates that?
That was COVID. That was
COVID. That's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
so remember,
that was COVID. That was
Stacy
just working and working and working. And also, for the people who did not, move away and purchase a new home, they did additions on their houses.
Oh, right. Oh, thanks,
so
Jane.
remember, this is 2021, right?
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
and
Okay,
we're
right.
also
Yeah.
our expenses were lower because, remember, we've been down an employee in the building department,
Yeah.
if not two
That's
employees,
exactly right.
Exactly.
Yes.
almost
And
a year now.
Yeah.
In several departments, we've been down. And so it's amazing that Stacy was able to do everything she did down
Incredible.
an employee.
Yeah.
Right.
That was pretty impressive.
Right.
Yeah.
It is important to monitor those budget to actuals. And one thing I've been pointing out to all of my clients is that just remember the last 2 years during COVID, a lot of those budgets have really been messed up. You didn't know what expenses. I mean, obviously you budget for recreation and then your recreation gets shut down. So you have no expenses one year and a lot of expenses the next year. So it makes it much more difficult over the last couple of years to sort of monitor and look for trends in your budget to actuals. Hopefully things will start leveling out again, that you really can look at those and figure out, what lines may be over budget or under budget. But right now it's kind of tough because a lot is COVID related.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
I'll just add that I can remember the times when we've wondered, what should we estimate for sales tax? What should we estimate for, it's been hard the last couple of years, harder than usual. Is there, I don't know if you've already covered advice you would want to give us. I don't know if that's your role at all, but feel free if there's anything else that you'd like to offer. I'd be interested. Certainly appreciate your report.
Yeah, I think we've just spoken about, a lot that I really love the idea of setting up reserves and funding reserves. It's a great tool to have when you need those expenses. That's something that's very important. And when you are doing budgeting with things like sales tax and mortgage tax, I also like to say, you always do want to err on the side of budgeting low. You don't want to over budget them,
Right.
because then you lose. If you come under, then your fund balance is going to go down. So you do want to err on the side of being low on revenues, unless you feel like you have so much fund balance you can afford to miss and don't worry about it. But most of the time, sometimes we see towns get into trouble when they don't want to raise tax.
And they
They got
overinflate.
tax cap they can't exceed. They'll say, let's just bump up our mortgage tax $100,000 in the budget. So now the budget balances, but if you're not really getting that 100,000, you get yourself in trouble. So just err on the side of budgeting low on the revenue side, and high on the expense side. That's, how you got to look at it.
So I want to point something out. The water fund that's in a deficit is Water 3. Water 3 consists of the Thruway building at the toll booth and the mobile station. So please get something in the Genesis, okay?
Yeah, it's hard to get rid of a deficit when you have two users.
When you have two customers, right?
And one of the customers just closed the toll booth, so there's no one there.
Yes.
So I'm not sure how much water they're using.
We got to start advertising that Genesis Diner somewhere and get some people in there. It's a great
Oh
spot.
my God.
Oh,
So, as soon as you lost the diner and the hotel, the motel in the back, which you lost first, but you had the diner going, and then that's it. It just went belly up.
It's a common problem with small districts, even if it's just users. You only have
Yes,
90 users in a district or 80 users in a district, and then you have a big expense. How are you going to hit those? How are you going to raise all that money amongst those only a couple of users? It's the same with everything. It's the economies of scale. And in this case, if you only have a couple of users, it's very difficult. But you are working towards eliminating the deficit. It is going down. So
I am. I work very hard on that district.
good job, Jean.
I make them pay their bill all the time.
Yes, thanks, Jean, for
Yes, very
being
much so.
and having excellent controls. I know Jean frustrates everyone all the time by making even me when I'm like, what? I gotta have 2 quotes for that?
I
Or 3
do.
quotes for that? Everyone. And I tell Jean, like, that's your job, Jean. Your job is to make sure that
Yeah.
people follow the rules. And yes,
Yeah.
it's frustrating for everyone, but when we get audited, it's why. It's obvious why. So that's my opinion. So thank you, Jean.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for this report. It was very good.
thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay. Any other questions or?
Nope. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
And so.
You don't need me, do you?
No, Jean.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Just not.
Okay. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Do you guys want to do the close the public hearings, or we can go on for the rest of the meeting? You want to do it at the end? I don't think anyone else has joined the meeting.
I'm fine with closing.
I think we're
Okay.
fine with closing.
So I'd like to make a motion to close the 2 public hearings for one for the local law to amend 140-6, the zoning map, and one to add a new Article 3 video conference meetings to Chapter 24.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And this isn't just for the meeting, it's closing it, right?
We're closing the public hearing for those 2. And then we would, the next 2 items on the agenda would be to adopt the local law for 140-6 for the zoning map. And the next one would be to adopt the local law for the video conference meetings.
Second.
All right, yeah, so, yeah, motion to adopt both of those laws. And
Second, Alex?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Number 4 is a motion to authorize and approve items 4A through 4F on the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And number 5. So number 5 is the a motion to approve the final pilot work scheduled memorandum of agreement dated 5/24/22, effective June 1st, 2022. So this is we've discussed this with the chief. This is an MOA where we're trying to do a pilot project with the police that gives us a little more flexibility with their days off. And, the idea is that it gives them, it lets us schedule the time off a little bit better. It also, we're hoping it helps with retention as well. So if like to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the final pilot work scheduled memorandum of agreement.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so I don't know if people want to go into executive session to discuss item 7. Oh, no, item 8. This is the settlement agreement. Or if people have read it, if they have any questions, we can go into executive session. If not, if people are okay with that. Do people want to go into executive session discussion, or are they okay?
Second.
I'm fine.
I'm
Okay.
fine.
And so we'll skip executive session. Number 7 is the police commission. Just to give everyone an update, we are currently reviewing the applicants. We're asking the members of the Reform and Reinvention Commission. They're going to be giving us their recommendations, and we'll be voting on July 7th. Is that right? So we're not doing, it's on tonight's agenda, but we're still waiting to get the recommendations from the Reform and Reinvention Commission. So we'll be, we're still working on it, and it's moving forward. And with that, motion to authorize the supervisor to sign and execute the settlement agreement with the PBA.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that's all I have. So, motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
No.